on, everybody. Here we go!
You're mad.
Thank goodness for that, because if I wasn't, this would probably never work.
No offense, but I don't play well with others.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that away. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
You stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
Time travel commencing in T-minus 10 seconds and counting.
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
Welcome to the Disney Guys Uncensored. This is episode 110, recorded on Monday, April 26th, 2021. Happy Pink Moon, everybody. And we are your hosts, Bub, Tim, and Jordana. On tonight's episode, we catch up with Alpha Centauri expeditions and visit an alien world not unlike our own. A world that celebrates ecology and biological diversity. Of course, we are talking about Pandora, the world of Avatar. I'm excited about it, but some real bookkeeping first here. As always, we are sponsored by the fine folks over at Wish Upon Magic, an Etsy experience specializing in stickers, keychains, some Mickey ears, handmade quality home goods, and my favorite thing, those watercolor prints, guys. If you're not on them yet, you got to get on them. They're beautifully well done. Excellent stuff. They're 8x10, 5x7, beautifully, easily frameable, a lot of fun. And of course, Tim, did you know a portion of every purchase does go to the Make-A-Wish Foundation to help spread the magic? And Jordana, just so you know, the next time you buy stickers, if you mention the Disney Guys Uncensored at checkout in the notes section on Etsy, you could get a magical freebie. So what are you waiting for? Head over to Wish Upon Magic on Etsy, Instagram, and their website. It is your place for fluffy, handmade items. And while you're there, please be sure to give them a follow, where you will find new items every week. And of course, in the spirit of Drew not being here, I'm going to tell you that Patreon or something or other, go to patreon.com/Disney Guys Uncensored for all your Patreon needs. All kidding aside, we appreciate the support. We love the support. I would push you all, if you are not comfortable supporting us in a fiscal way, the best way for you to support us is to go over to your preferred listening platform and leave us a review or a comment, so we know you're listening and we know you like the content we're delivering here. And that's it for bookkeeping. Let's go over to my favorite, the Disney News Desk.
Thanks, Bob. This week, not a ton of news. Number one story has got to be, finally, after, 4 months since the date they said it was reopening, the People Mover / Tomorrowland Transit Authority finally reopened this weekend. People riding that. One of the most relaxing, great Walt Disney World experiences is back, and people are super excited. I, for one, am excited. Can't wait to get back down there, get my People Mover on. Other than that, the flexible cancellation policy is expiring on its original stated date, May 1st, 2021, which means Disney will go back to its standard cancellation policy. So you can no longer book your Walt Disney World vacations with reckless abandon, knowing that you will be able to get your full amount back whenever you want it, up to 7 days before your trip. But their regular cancellation policy is pretty generous and flexible, if I don't say so myself. In that same vein, due to the extremely limited availability of park passes for the foreseeable future, folks, park passes at most parks are booked up through July right now, even with them opening up more and more availability as the days go on. Disney is going to start canceling your park passes that no longer have a valid theme park ticket or annual pass associated with them. This affects a very small portion of park passes, but basically, if you made a reservation, made for the parks, and then took advantage of that flexible cancellation policy and canceled that trip or changed that trip, you could still have those park pass dates reserved, just no longer have a admission ticket based on those days associated with them. And so basically Disney is now going to do a little computer housekeeping, go through and cancel those. So that will no longer be a valid strategy to hold open park passes while you be indecisive about your trip. And that is really it for the news. And we're going to roll right on into the conclusion of our Earth Week content as we take you off of Earth to another planet that is a big conservation allegory, and that is Pandora, the world of Avatar in Disney's Animal Kingdom. I want to kick it off with a quote from good friend of the Disney Guys Uncensored, Joe Rohde, retired executive designer and vice president of creative at Walt Disney Imagineering. If you think about the intrinsic value of nature, transformation through adventure, and personal call to action, these are the values of Animal Kingdom. But if you say them again, those are the themes of the film Avatar. So Avatar and Animal Kingdom will nest into each other very, very neatly. So that really was a quote, Joe Rohde responding to all the people saying, why is this James Cameron blockbuster? What does this have to do with Animal Kingdom? And that was really him laying out his design philosophy as he was the lead designer on World of Avatar and Animal Kingdom in general, and how it fits with Disney's message of conservation and preservation at Animal Kingdom. So Pandora World of Avatar is 12 acres. It replaced Camp Mickey Minnie, which was the old kids area in Animal Kingdom, and it cost an estimated $500 million. And it was Disney's first crack at a super immersive land. Wouldn't you say, Bub?
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. I mean, this when they first started this, when you think about Camp Minnie Mickey, it didn't seem huge. It had Festival of the Lion King, Pocahontas and her forest friends, and some character trails. And something about the size of Animal Kingdom to me is odd, because this park, for as large as it is, in various locations is very congested. And I always thought that Camp Minnie Mickey itself was kind of congested for just walkways and a couple shows. And for 12 acres, Tim, it seems surprisingly tight for the area they have.
I think a lot of that is the layout and the architecture. We'll get into that.
Yep.
But I think Camp Mickey and Minnie needed to go, even if it was a great kids land, which it certainly wasn't.
No, it was not.
For a lot of us park super fans, it represented a broken promise. You know, that was where Beastly Kingdom was supposed to be, the original fantasy-based dragons and demons and gargoyles land in Animal Kingdom. And
Fire Mountain. Do not forget Fire Mountain.
Like, this was the most anticipated part of Animal Kingdom, and it just literally never came to be. And this really slapdash kids land kind of stood in its place for almost 20 years, which was just kind of a constant reminder of what could have been.
Yep.
So I think it was smart of Disney to get rid of that specifically. And, you know, the Daffy Dino stuff over in Dino Land really fills the exact same niche. Animal Kingdom is a pretty kid accessible park. You don't need additional kids trails. And I don't think Pocahontas Forest Friends was any great loss.
Hey, that show was something. It existed. Okay.
It did. That's a perfect way to put it, Bub. But back to what you said about how this was like the first big thing, like the first big land that they overdid. You think about what we have now with, you know, we have Pandora, we have Galaxy's Edge, we have Toy Story Land. Like, this was like kind of like the first leading thing, right? And I just think that this kind of helped set the stage of what Galaxy Edge specifically was going to be, based on like just overtaking everything.
Oh, 100%, 100%.
You know?
I mean, this was the first place where we saw them, the uniforms that the cast members wear have no Disney branding. This was the first place where we saw the tap styles that did not have the Mickey logo on them. They were made to look like something that Alpha Centauri expeditions would have installed. And in fact, when you tap them, the ACE logo lights up. Mm-hmm. I mean, this was the first place where you stepped out of Animal Kingdom and into Pandora, the world of Avatar. 100%, this was the beta test for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I'm sure we're going to see very similar at Avengers Campus. To some extent, Toy Story Land is a different way of doing the same idea. I wouldn't say quite as immersive as this, but this certainly was the precursor to these types of immersive lands. And you know what? I don't think it's that high of a take. As big of a Star Wars fan as I am, I think in a lot of ways, this pulls it off better because I could go on Wikipedia or look at the visual dictionaries I have on my bookshelf and find out every little minute detail about Star Wars, which makes it so much easier to see where they couldn't pull it off in Galaxy's Edge, where, you know, the illusion is thinned out. And here, you don't have that with Avatar. You don't have the massive 50 years of cultural cachet attached to this movie. So it's way easier to get lost in it. And the biggest thing that makes it easier to get lost in it is the centerpiece of this land, the floating mountains. Like, this has to be Walt Disney World, Disneyland, amazing, constantly good use of forced perspective. It's how the mountains look big. It's how the castles look big. It's how Main Street gets to be 3 stories tall. But with the floating mountains, it's a whole other level. Like, the visual trickery, the fact you can walk under and around them, and the illusion holds up is just astounding. And if you haven't seen the episode of Imagineering Story where they really go into the construction of Pandora, 100% worth it. Even if you don't care about Imagineering that much, watch that episode just so you can see what went into this, because they're really a modern marvel. And then on top of that, they designed all this flora and fauna to like make it feel alien but grounded, combining jungle plants with these, you know, animatronic plants and light up things. And then all throughout there's music and soundscapes piped in over hidden speakers so that you get the quote unquote nature sounds of Pandora to really fully pull you in. And then, of course, most people's favorite thing about Pandora is the bioluminescence. At night, everything glows, even the cracks in the sidewalk and the rocks and, you know, the plants and everything. It's a whole different experience at night. I personally think Pandora at night is pretty overrated because you really lose the depth on the mountains, the floating mountains and the vine. You don't see the vines anymore and the illusion kind of breaks. But I know, Bub, you're a big fan of Pandora at night.
Well, first of all, I'm going to run it back about 3 minutes here and tell you that I agree with Jordana 100% when you can compare what they do in Toy Story Land to Pandora. I think it's a smaller scale, but the whole idea of immersion and the footprints and you're in Andy's backyard, it's identical in terms of its goal. I don't know if it pulls it off as well, Tim. Maybe that's where
what
we
I'm saying.
agree.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have the immersion. Like the cast members are wearing Hollywood Studios uniforms. Right. You know, there's still tap styles that look like tap styles. They're not fully immersed.
No, the tap styles are built in, like with toys and stuff. I mean, if you go back a few episodes during, what was that? Sometime last summer, I think me and you kind of collaborated on a Toy Story Land episode. And it was funny because I'm probably the least likely supporter of Toy Story Land on this podcast in terms of how much I wanted more from that. I will tell you, I suffer from that with Pandora as well. I want more of it. I don't know what we would do. Both the attractions are great, but I just dig the reclaimed vibe of this land. That this land, in essence, is one of the moons of Pandora. It was part of the film series, but these events that you're kind of latching onto in this theme park attraction is a generation after the film. That Alpha Centauri, like Tim had mentioned, kind of welcomes you onto the moon, whatever. Tim, you're right. I love it at night. I do. But I think it is both beautiful at night and during the day. I think you really, to fully get the full scope of the land, I love the natural lighting, even though don't know where you're going at night in this area, because there's not a ton of traditional theme park lighting in this part of the park.
I go as far as say there's none. Once you cross the bridge from Discovery Island or the long decking walkway from Africa,
I love that walkway.
That walkway is awesome.
That back door is sneaky, man.
It's one of the coolest transitions in all of Disney theme parks because you start when you walk past the Lion King Theater, you are just on a plumb standard wooden deck going along the water. The light fixtures are normal. The vegetation is normal Florida vegetation. And they almost do like what I can only describe as a gradient as you like work your way up. You don't even notice it, but as you're going down there, the plants on the side that doesn't have water are changing. All of a sudden, the light posts are getting more sci-fi and then more organic into the like bioluminescent plants that replace the lights in Pandora. So that's a really cool, as you put it, back door into Pandora.
Yeah.
And what you're touching on, to really get this immersion working, there is a whole backstory to Pandora, which basically after the events of the Avatar film, and I'll be really interested now that we're going to have the sequels are supposedly going to be coming out next year.
Yeah, Tim, allegedly those films are coming out next year. I mean, we play a game on this podcast, Jordana and Tim. What comes first, Avatar 2 or Space 220? That's always our barometer on this show. I'm telling you, I think Avatar 2 comes first.
I'm with you. I agree with that one.
I really have to hope it's Space 220. I think, isn't Avatar 2 Holiday 22?
Oh, yeah. December 2022. Can you imagine if Space 220 isn't open by then?
That would be a 4-year delay from the original announced opening.
20, but Tim, you're absolutely right. This walkway is fantastic. The backstory is great. Like you said, it takes place about a generation after the first movie, so it does raise the questions timeline-wise if the land will still. I mean, I'm sure it will. I don't imagine.
I mean, I think at this point, James Cameron is so conscientious about continuity in his film series that, if anything, it is going to force his hand in how he writes the sequels, since the sequels are taking place a generation after. And so what the story is a generation after the events of the movie. Obviously, spoilers for Avatar, if you haven't seen it, and you should. It's on Disney Plus. Fantastic film. The good guys win, and the Navi, with the help of Jake, famous film protagonist Jake. Jake Sully, yeah. Get control of their planet back from the people who are trying to do extractive capitalism to it. And so this is a new expedition to their homeland that is much more in line with the values of the Navi and mutual respect, and not, just trying to strip mine their planet for unobtainium. But the cool thing is what all the structures and things we find in Pandora are reclaimed structures from the first expedition by the bad people trying to do mining, with all these really, really cool and unique touches of Navi culture and how over 40 or 50 years they have repurposed these structures to fit their sensibilities. So we get to see tons of not only decay and reclamation by nature, which is just absolutely beautifully done with these effects, where this stuff does look old despite only being way less than 10 years old. But you also get to see how these angular concrete and rebar buildings have now got Navi weavings and canopies made out of branches, worked into their structures. Yeah, just overall a visually stunning effect once you get past that floating mountain range and all the alien flora and fauna, that the little details were not left, unturned.
I think one of my favorite things about this, and Jordan, I think you kind of being a park nut too, and Tim, obviously you kind of loving the details. I think this is one of the first major things. In fact, Animal Kingdom itself is one of the first major things that I remember seeing being built. And that accounts for Animal Kingdom, and accounts for Everest when Everest was being built. And then when they were putting this up, I was down there before them, hoping to get Avatar open. I mean, they took a while to get this right. And I think the attention to detail shows that, Tim, like you said. And Jordan, I would love, as our resident parks geek and our booker of trips over at travelmation.net. That's Jordana Izzo at travelmation.net. For all of you noobs listening at home, she is earmarked platinum status. And recently, I think the Dean's List or something in terms of executive.
Top producer.
Yeah, top Dean's List, top producer. It's all the same damn thing. But you've been very busy. But what do you tell people that haven't seen Pandora yet? I mean, it's something. And the both of you have the ability to compare it to Galaxy's Edge. I know Andrew and myself have not been down to Galaxy's Edge yet. And Tim, I'm absolutely stunned that you said the attention to detail, maybe not greater than, but at least equal to, and in some spots definitely more pulled off than what you got in Galaxy's Edge. Obviously, being the Star Wars fan. Jordan, did you tell people this is as good as Galaxy's Edge?
Yeah, I do, actually. I think because it's just, like I said, it was the first of its kind. But with, I usually give clients, I give a must-watch list. Like, all right, if you really want to pay attention to detail, you need to see, like, if you're going to Universal, you need to see Harry Potter. If you're going to, if you're going to Hollywood Studios, you probably should watch some Star Wars movies, stuff like that. And one of them I always say is in Animal Kingdom, there is this whole Pandora land. You need to see Avatar to experience all of it.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, Tim, we know we touched on it, but man, and I know good friend of the show, Greg Cook, the maker of all of our logos, really good friend of the show. He loves this soundtrack, Tim. Loves the area music in Pandora. I have the quote unquote album, if that's even what the kids are calling them these days. I don't know, but I have it on my playlist and I listen to it. And I got to tell you, I get down with some of these jams.
Yeah, Tim. This is one of the awesome music. The music they composed for this land actually has won awards similar to the music they composed for Galaxy's Edge. And Disney did listen to the fans. Actually, I don't know if it's Disney because I believe Universal Music, the record label, actually owns the distribution rights to the Pandora soundtrack from Disney, which is interesting.
That sounds right.
It is available on your Apple Musics, on your Spotify's. It's on YouTube, officially released on YouTube. So check this out. Super, super, super accessible. I mean, if you have access to YouTube, you can listen to this whole soundtrack. Totally worth it. I know for me personally, and we've talked about it before when we've talked about this ride, the Navi River Journey music is a jam that got me through a lot of work from home, putting that on the background so I could focus and do some programming stuff.
Are we willing to call it Drew's favorite ride in the parks?
I mean, since he's not on the show, we certainly can.
Yes, definitely. Andrew's
boat ride. It's automatically favorite.
This smells like a segue to me because now we get to rip on Drew for a little bit.
Yeah.
What is his deal with boat rides?
I think it's a character at this point. I think he's playing it up for the camera, so to speak. But speaking of boat rides, Jordana, as someone who's trying to sell vacations and sell people on going to Animal Kingdom, because I do hear still that this park is, if you can only do X number of parks, that this is the one you're supposed to skip, which I vehemently disagree with.
No, I can't. That blows my mind. It blows my mind that people still consider this a skippable park. I just can't. I can't handle it.
I think it's the second least skippable park now that Hollywood Studios is complete. But if Hollywood Studios was not full of shiny new things, I think this for a long time was my least skippable park. But what I was getting at,
I prefer skipping, which is funny that you say that. I prefer skipping Hollywood Studios right now because there's no shows or anything, and like especially for families who can't go, like your kids can't go on Rock and Roller Coaster and stuff like that. It's a tough sell. But
this is why she is our resident vacation expert.
So how about you take us through some of the attractions at Pandora, Jordana?
Yeah, so I mean, first up, we already touched on it, the boat ride, Navi River Journey. It's a dark ride, but it goes dark ride. It's still the fluorescent lighting, like Avatar at night, it's got a lot of 3D holograms, a lot of animatronics. One of the best animatronics out there, the Shaman of Songs, who It's very, very human-like, and one of the coolest things that Disney has ever done.
Yeah, it's super fluid.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about animatronics, you think, classics, Pirates of the Caribbean, some of the stuff over at Splash Mountain. And again, obviously excluding the stuff at Galaxy's Edge with Kylo Ren and Hondo Ohnaka, which are clearly top of the line. This Shimano of Songs is one of the most fluid, impressive. And I think what's great about this one, Jordana, is you literally are within 3 feet of it from the ride. I mean, she's literally right there.
And she's
living, breathing.
She's huge. She definitely plays that
massive,
like type of alien-like. What you think you don't. It's human-like, but it's alien-like. It's completely
correct. Well, because the Navi are 9.5 feet tall.
Right. Exactly.
And she definitely has that size. She's not standing up. She's sitting down. But we could do an episode, I think, on the animatronic alone. To be honest with you.
And what went into it and everything. And, when I think it was maybe it was like a couple months ago when she went down, and they just kind of put a sheet over her. Yeah, that's the whole ride. That is the whole ride.
That's the big payoff. You're right. That's
exactly.
the big payoff of the.
And I think that, it definitely made us miss something. It's missing something. The ride's very short. Do not wait for this queue over 30 minutes because this ride is so short. You'll end up being so disappointed. I remember when Pandora first opened, there was a 3-hour wait for this ride, and people were like, that's it.
Yeah, so it doesn't really do great with the hourly capacity run through. That is a true story.
No.
I think what you run into here, though, is one of the things that Disney did when they built this is they kind of used the utilities, one set of utilities for the 2 buildings. And technically that equates to Flight of Passage and Navi River Journey sharing a building, quote unquote. It's a massive building, but they are sharing a building. And I think what Disney did here, and it's fair because Flight of Passage to me is one of, if not the best ride on property. It is definitely a top 3 or 4 ride for me. And it's tough because when you read up on what Pandora could have been, and specifically what the Navi River Journey was going to be, this was clearly the halfway point of this attraction. This was the first half of your journey. There was going to be maybe 1 or 2 drops, similar to like we earlier said in Pirates, very similar to Pirates when you go down the waterfall into the cove, and you were going to actually end up at the Tree of Souls from the film, which is going to be the big payoff for you. And you were going to witness some traditional Navi ceremonies and things like that. I'm going to tell you something right now. If they had added the extra 1.5 or 2 minutes, whatever, so this would have been, instead of the 98-second ride it would have been closer to 4 minutes. This ride would be on par for me with Splash Mountain. It just based on how this ride is currently, if you double that with a bigger payoff scene, and I'm thinking probably something similar to the ferry boat scene in Splash Mountain, this would be an e-ticket ride too, without the thrill effect. I mean, this would be a landmark attraction.
So not to derail, but do you think that eventually, if that had happened, would flip and then become the quote-unquote main ride? Because I agree that Flight of Passage is a top 3 theme park ride probably in the world, but because it is still fundamentally a quote-unquote screen ride, we are going to get to a point where it feels like Star Tours. When whatever technology advances to that point, it's going to feel dated.
That's a good point.
Bite your tongue.
No,
Star Tours is a great ride.
Oh, no, it is. I agree. But I think we can all say, Star Tours is fundamentally the technology. We have technology in our homes that's more advanced than that. So eventually the same thing is going to happen with Flight of Passage, whereas the originally planned version of Navi River Journey, there is something that is timeless about slow, dark rides that use practical effects. And
you're not wrong. The
Shaman of Songs is unequivocally the most advanced animatronic. Well, I was about to say in any theme park in the world, but I don't think that's true anymore now that Beauty and the Beast is open in Tokyo.
Beauty and the Beast is now open, and I know that, you know, some of the Star Wars stuff is pretty cool.
It is
it's not
still
nearly as advanced, but
Right.
Honda Onaka in the queue for Millennium Falcon is still not as advanced as Shamana Song.
Right.
I agree with that.
So.
But I'll tell you guys, so right now, we're going to get a little ahead of ourselves into next week a little bit, but Jordan, I mean, if this ride ever got expanded, I mean, Tim asked the question, is it the can't miss attraction of this corner of the park if this ride is 4 minutes long as opposed to the 98 seconds?
I think so, because it's a family ride.
Yep.
You know, people are gravitating towards it anyway because you can bring, you know, any size, any age on there. Mm-hmm. And then I think it'll just, you know, it'll make it more worth it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, more bang for your buck. Absolutely.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I totally,
I think the other thing is Flight of Passage. They're, you know, old people, very young people, very heavy people. That ride is, I'm looking for the words, sneakily, accessible for not inclusive for a wider group of people than most Disney attractions. You know, it's very similar to like a suspended roller coaster in the limitations that it imposes on its riders, and Disney does not typically do that. I mean, they literally do not have any rides that have those style of cars.
Well, let's even look at the two cousins of this attraction, Tim, in terms of Soarin' and Mission Space, which are probably cousins or relatives of this technology in Flight of Passage. They have significantly less restrictions on those two attractions, and those two attractions have some limitations that you're talking about. And Flight of Passage trumps both of them with the limitations it has, or it imposes on itself at this point, because no one's really imposing it on them. It's the design of the attraction.
And I think the payoff is worth it. I mean, we'll get to it in a second.
Yep.
There's a reason why the ride vehicle is designed the way it does, so that it can do what it can do, but it is more restrictive than your average Disney ride.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Tim. I don't disagree with you. And Tim, I want to ask you the question then. You brought it up. You think if we ever got the extended cut of this is the main event in Pandora?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am not as down on this ride as most people. I love this
Drew
ride.
Specifically. You're not as down on it as Drew is.
But that's not it. Drew's opinion is not an unpopular opinion. There's nothing groundbreaking about being a Disney Parks fan and kind of a cynical person who knows the ins and outs of the park, that it is not a uncommon thing to say Navi River Journey sucks and then explain all the things we just said to people. Oh, it was supposed to be this and it was supposed to have this budget and blah. If you just appreciate Navi River Journey for what it is, yes, the length could be a little bit like too short. It is awesome. The integration of practical effects in the screens, the fact that they don't really shoehorn a story into it, that it is just a boat ride through this amazing environment that has been pulled from the outside to the inside of this ride building, and it just further immerses you into the land. I love everything about this ride, even though it isn't quote unquote everything it could have been. I mean, that's how I feel about it, and part of that does come from Rachel and I's first trip was down together was, I think, not too long after Pandora opened, and that was when, if you were not on there at 6:30 in the morning, finger on the trigger for your Flight of Passage Fast Pass, you just weren't getting it. And so we took River Journey instead, and had to wait in line for Flight of Passage. So that was my first experience with Pandora and the ride. So it left an impression on me, but I still think there is value in this ride. I agree with Jordana. You probably don't want to wait much more than 30 minutes for it. And you're going to wait more than 30 minutes for it a lot of time because its riders per hour, as you pointed out, isn't great. But if you could swing it, and as long as your expectations are managed, this is a great ride.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. I loved it. You know what? It's ironic is my 8-year-old who was 6 the last time we went, he loves this ride. Loves it. Loves the whole, like, and you said, you would not one you would consider, narratively speaking, a coherent thought for a 6-year-old. Let's be honest. There's no A, B, C story structure. It's literally very open-ended, very esoteric in a way that it's a river cruise through the jungle of Pandora.
But it's not a river. Yeah, it's not Jungle Cruise. There's nobody guiding you.
No, right. It's just
floating on a boat down a river.
You're in a reed canoe, and that's it, man. It's just, and it's something wholly simplistic and wholesome about this, and I love the attraction. I wish we could talk more about it, but Jordana, there's a heavy hitter that we said shares a building with Navi River Journey.
Yes, so this is Flight of Passage, which is a big one. We touched on it a little bit, and I mean, it's not quite as bad as Star Tours yet. I
think we're years from that point. I was just saying, theoretically, we're going to get to that point just because that's how technology works.
When did Star Tours open?
1989 in Disneyland, I think. So.
If it opened with the studios, it opened in 89. It did open.
So 87 in Disneyland.
So it might have opened a year or two before that in Disneyland.
Yeah.
So let's say we're 30.
Well, you want to go back further. When did Body Wars open? Because that Body Wars was kind of the cousin of that concept too. So
but technology advances faster. All I was trying to say is, like, we're already at 4K, and when this ride was built, the video I believe is 16K or 20K, but people didn't even have, every household didn't have an HD television. So we're going to get to the facility and the immersiveness that this accomplishes sooner rather than later. But anyway, great ride. Let's get to it.
I do love this ride.
Yes, so it's pretty much a ride. It's a 3D flying simulator attraction that's set in Avatar universe. So you are on a Banshee. You're flying, like, it's literally the Banshee that you're on, like the ride like vibrates. It's a very, very cool.
Well, it breathes. It breathes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is what I was alluding to earlier about how this ride is not as inclusive as most Disney rides. You sit on what is basically a motorcycle. If you're used to the way the riding position you take on a street style motorcycle rather than like a Harley Cruiser, you sit in that position on this thing, and then stirrups close on your legs, and a pad comes up from the back and closes against your back and pushes you forward against the center post of the ride. And what this does is let it very gently push you and squeeze you while you're in the motion simulator to simulate things like that you're riding on a Banshee, and the Banshee is under you breathing, and you feel it breathing. You feel its wings flapping. You feel when it stops, the whole thing. So in addition to the regular motion simulator movement, which on this ride is much more, it moves more in relation to the film than a Star Tours, a Body Wars, Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, a Mission Space, because the way it works is you are on these rows of these motorcycle assemblies, and then that row lifts up and juts forward into the domed screen that is like the Soarin' screen. So it's just like that ride position of Soarin' where you're inside the screen basically, but that gives this ride so much room to move. So the motion simulator movements are so much more exaggerated than they are on a traditional enclosed motion simulator ride. And it just makes for an incredibly immersive experience, not to mention the fact that it has water effects and smells just like Soarin', except because you're on this individual motorcycle, those effects are basically being blasted directly into your face. So those are also at like a different level of intensity. This is such an immersive ride for what in the end of the day is a screen ride.
Yeah.
And Jordana, I think you've made a good point. You kind of.
What'd you say, bro?
Go ahead, Jordana. Go ahead.
No, like I was just saying that you kind of made a good point that they kind of took the best of a bunch of rides and they put it into this ride, like the screen from Soarin', or like, how it's like not a multi-purpose, but there's multiple parts to the storyline. Like, Smuggler's Run or whatever. So it's just, you kind of took what was working and you put it into this ride, I think.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean,
do you guys have favorite scenes from this film? Because, Tim, you hit something here that I definitely want to talk about. But do you have a favorite scene, either one of you? Is there a scene that stands out to you that you say, boom, that's the money shot?
I got to be honest, I haven't seen the movie in like 2 years.
No. On the ride, though.
Oh,
you have...
in the ride.
Yeah.
I think, like, when the smell, like, when you're going through and, like, that smell hits you, like, because that's kind of, like, the first, like, whew, like, you got all your senses working for you. That's mine.
Mine is easy. It's after the first big action sequence, or no, maybe it's the second big, but when you land in the cave and it so accurately makes that feeling of motion and then stopping and coming to rest. And then there's this certain smell that it sends in your face, this very calming floral smell. And then the flying jellyfish come and light and then touch the bioluminescent plankton, and that whole cavern lights up. And it's just so beautiful. Every time it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. That scene, and then a close second is after that scene when you start flying real low over the Navi who are riding on the like Navi wildebeest, and you could smell the dirt, and then you go up and you get to see the whale for the second time from afar and actually see its whole body. Both those scenes just literally right now, like I could give me chills. Like it just so immersive. How about you? What are your
Yeah,
scenes?
no, mine's got to be at any point when you are flying on the coastline in the beach area. I just love the mist of the water coming up. Something about cheap water tricks in any ride get me every time.
And the way that the Banshee always gets like close to the water.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yep. But guys, let's be honest. This ride, as great as it is, the queue is no joke either. And we've talked about it. I don't want to go in depth with the queue. The queue is made to hold like 4 hours worth of lines. So it's immersive as hell. If you've seen the movie, you go through the lab area. It's crazy. It's so detailed. Everything about this. I didn't really miss a trick from the moment you step in the queue till the moment you're walking down those godforsaken stairs after going on the attraction to the backside of the gift shop. It's just a money attraction beginning to end. And it could be, honestly, it could be a 2.5 hour experience for you.
Yeah. And I will say I've done the queue once, and it's not Rise of the Resistance where the attraction starts the moment you enter the queue. And that's not like some marketing speak, like that is an important part of the attraction.
Correct.
But it is a beautiful and visually interesting queue. It is certainly the first queue that Imagineering really took into account. People are going to be waiting for hours and hours and hours, and we need to make it feel worthwhile and interesting and keep people engaged. This is the first queue, I think, where they really had a bunch of like the drinking fountains and water bottle filling stations inside the queue.
Bathroom. There's a bathroom
in the queue. The queue changes distinct scenery and scenes 4 times, I think. There's the outdoors. There's the Navi caves with the weavings and the cave paintings. There's the outside of the old expedition buildings with like the camo netting and the bioluminescence. And then there's the tunnels. Oh, so there's 5. And then there's the lab. And the lab is truly impressive. Like, especially if you can go now where there's the capacity restrictions are still somewhat in effect and there's no fast pass, you'll be able to kind of cruise through this queue because this ride is a people eater of all people eaters. It puts massive numbers of people through per hour. So they really crank them through even now.
And I will say, like,
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I will say, like, on the opposite end of where if you rope drop this and there is no one in line, you're literally like taking 15 minutes just to walk through the queue to get to the ride. It could be a 5-minute wait, but it takes a while to walk through everything.
Oh yeah, I believe this queue is it's close to a half mile, right, Bob? If not more.
Yeah.
I had this pulled up, but yeah, 15 minutes is not an underestimate of what it takes to do all the switchbacks. But it's worth it, even just for the lab where they have a full-size Navi animatronic in the tube, and they have all the Banshee skulls and bones and the experiments in the central place. It's really worth seeing, even if you only do it once. I did it once, and then you just fast pass it the rest of the time or rush through it. Other than that, standard big ticket ride stuff, Jordana. They worked with Walt Disney, worked with James Cameron's company, and also with Weta Digital, which is Peter Jackson's digital effects shop, and they did used assets from the film so that the ride film is screen accurate.
Right. All the footage is actually original. But
so the footage is original to the ride. There's nothing reused to the movie,
right.
But the assets are the same digital assets that were used in the movie. So yeah, I mean, I think this is an amazing ride. Totally worth it. 100% must ride every single trip for me. I don't know if this is a hot take, but for me personally, I think I said this on the show before. If you take out the queues and the pre-shows from Riding Resistance and you just go ride for ride, like not to spoil that, but what the main ride of Riding Resistance is compared to this is a significantly better ride. So based on that comparison, for me, if that's the fair way to judge it, this is the best ride on Walt Disney World property right now to me.
That's a hot take, but
I don't think it's a hot take.
It's one of the best. I will say it's top 5. Not like probably top 3, but it's.
I'm not even sure it's the best ride in this park.
Interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
You're an Everest guy, though, right?
Everest and the Safari. I love both of those attractions.
I really don't consider the Safari a ride, but that's like another.
Like an experience.
That's another podcast episode.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Good point.
Yeah, but and again, which goes back to our previous conversation about how somebody thinks this is a skippable park. I have no idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. I love this park.
I do love Everest. You're right.
Certainly not a skippable ride.
No.
All right, and then
there's a few things there that are skippable. Let's be honest. In Animal Kingdom as a whole, there isn't much that is skippable when you're there.
No. Are you guys on the dinosaur skipper ride side of things?
I have been in my last couple trips.
Well, I don't.
You have an excuse.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I skip dinosaur. I've seen it enough where if I don't go on it, it's not the end of the world for me.
That's kind of where I'm at.
But if you've never been and you think, oh, it's Animal Kingdom, it's a zoo, oh, I don't need to go there, you're out of your mind.
Yeah. And for the record, we are a big dinosaur household. I think the people who are like, oh, it's so rough and I can't do it and blah, blah, blah. No, it's great. Do it. Yeah. Dinosaurs are great. Even though the animatronics are in like Z mode. Yeah. They barely move. It's still worth it.
I mean, I don't know that I'm fast passing dinosaur, but I certainly, I personally need to go on dinosaur.
Oh, it's fast pass 4 or 5 because it's just so easy to get those 3 o'clock in the afternoon fast pass after you used your first 3.
Yeah.
Jordan, there's a couple other things other than these 2 rides that are, show up on your park map as attractions and entertainment when you click on Pandora.
So we have the drum ceremony.
And what would that be called? The what drum ceremony?
Oh, geez, you're gonna make me say it, aren't you? Swatu Waiyanavi drum ceremony. Did I do it right?
You did better than Drew.
I have no idea. I don't speak Pandoran or Navi, so I just was trying to make you be the.
You just wanted me to say it, so okay.
Yeah. I'm certainly not going to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know if you want to try to say it yourself, you can look it up. I'll
get to that when we talk about merchandise. There's another way you can learn Navi.
There we go.
I can check. I can run downstairs right now and see if I have the card that says that.
All right, spoilers. Let's finish up with the attractions so we can get to dining and shopping, pup.
So it's an outdoor drum circle performance that's held at the Valley of Moara, meant to recreate a traditional Navi drum ceremony. I don't think this is happening right now. Am I correct?
You're correct, but the drums are there and they are still on. So these drums are like big electronic drums that look like giant Navi size, like traditional African drums, but they're also built into the land. So yeah, you can go and jam out on those all day long. Unfortunately, it's not happening. Hopefully it'll be happening soon, since the agreement with Equity was reached way back in the summer, and they've brought back some of the entertainment in some of the parks. But I imagine this one's not high priority, because this one, people aren't lining up for the Swutu Waya Navi drum ceremony.
There you go. You did.
Look at him.
I figured I gotta try it.
Yeah.
Just make me fool myself first.
If you get a chance to see it, it is a fun little show. If they are doing it when you're there, it's a decent little.
Kids get hyped on this one.
I'm definitely gonna have to go watch a YouTube on this.
I think Sal would love it.
Probably, definitely.
Yeah.
And then Pandora Utility Suite. So that is, I've never seen this one either. The
giant mech suit. It's pretty cool.
Mech. It's
That's
real
pretty
mech.
cool too.
Oh, okay, that's what this is. Okay, so it's like this giant creature thing, kind of like, I don't know, it's
a robot suit. It's a man in a robot suit walking around.
Yeah,
in
very
a real
similar.
Robot suit.
Very similar to the film.
Okay, yeah.
But the bad guy.
I would say it's more of a walking around character than an entertainment thing, than a show.
Atmosphere character. It's similar to the citizens of Sunset over at the studios.
If the citizens of Hollywood were wearing a 12-foot powered armor with a chainsaw arm.
Correct. Yes.
And at Christmas, they put Christmas lights and a Santa hat on it. Which rules.
That's pretty awesome. I didn't know that. And yes, that's our attractions.
Yeah, and with the utility suit, this is also unfortunately not around right now for obvious reasons. Right. And unlike the regular suit characters, you can't just put your 12-foot suit behind a fence and have it wave at people, because it doesn't work that way. There is a stationary version of one of these suits that's outside Pongu Pongu that's always there, so you can still see what it looks like. But it's hard to overstate as a giant dork for robots how cool an actual mech suit is walking around.
Definitely.
But speaking of Pongu Pongu, that brings us to the dining and shopping experiences you'll find here on the moon of Pandora. So Pongu Pongu is, according to the Disney website, I've never heard of it, is technically the Pongu Pongu Lounge, but it's not a lounge. There's no seating. It's a stand.
Sounds made up, Tim.
Well, if you Google it, go.disneyworld.com will tell you it's the Pongu Pongu Lounge. This is the stand. It's in the center back of the land, actually right in front of Satuli Canteen, the main quick service. This serves breakfast, which I did not know. It's very standard quick service breakfast. And I think that's only because Satuli Canteen doesn't serve breakfast. Yeah. So this is their mandated breakfast option.
What happened when they opened the land? They didn't realize that people wanted food.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure. I've never seen it, but regardless, other than that, this is mostly for drinks. They have the most famous drink is the Night Blossom, which is a non-alcoholic slushy drink that's layers of apple slush and prickly pear limeade. The apple slush is green, the limeade is purple, and it's topped with passion fruit boba, and you can get it with a glow cube inside this blue silicone, hairy organic looking thing. It's one of the cooler looking novelty glow cubes on property.
I keep hairy things out of my drink.
Yeah, that generally is considered preferable. And then other than that, this is where you can get your alcohol in Pandora. They have the Moara High Country Ale, which is pretty bog standard red ale. And then they have the Hawks Grog Ale, which is an ale with apricot and peach infusion with like a spicy hop. And this one is dyed bright green. So if you didn't get your fix of green beer one day a year at St. Patrick's Day in your local, drinking establishment, you can get it 365 days a year here, and it's a lot better than green Budweiser. They also have the Rum Blossom, which is just a night blossom with Bacardi Superior. This is the same rum they mix in with the Dole Whip. I'm a big fan of this. And then this is my fiance Rachel's favorite, which is the Moara Margarita. And that's Sueza Reserve Tequila, Blue Curacao, lime juice, and passion fruit syrup with passion fruit boba balls. And this is a pretty good drink also.
Yeah, one of the best margaritas on property.
Yeah, this is a must get for Rachel. One time she had one. She was almost done with it, and then she dropped it. And it almost fell on a baby. And I'm only telling this story because when she hears the podcast tomorrow, she's going to get really mad.
Rachel, next time we meet up in Disney, we're going to go have one of these margaritas together.
Be careful.
And he just told that story on the podcast. I'm just saying.
Be careful because you're going to have a baby, and she might drop a frozen margarita on your baby.
We'll leave the boys at home, all right?
So anyway, that's Pongu Pongu. Sorry. They also have, they have the signature snack of the land is also here, which is the Pongu Pineapple Lumpia. And this is kind of the first thing that introduces the really unique food program they have in Pandora. This is a lumpia, which is a Filipino spring roll. It's the real thin egg roll style wrapper, and it's filled with sweetened cream cheese and pineapple. And this is super unique to the land. So good. They come in orders, 2 of them. It's a good thing to split. But this is taking these Asian and South American influence flavors, and you see this influence also in the drinks, and presenting this fusion food in this environment as something alien, but with familiar flavors. Nobody is going to get turned off by cheesecake filling and pineapple. I mean, everything is pineapple at Disney World, but it's presented in this unique way of being served as an egg roll. Have either of you guys had this before?
I've had the colossal pretzel. It was very good.
Okay, I was skipping over the pretzel.
Me and Bub have a very similar palate where we're okay having chicken fingers every day.
It's perfectly fine.
The colossal pretzel, I feel, was similar to the breakfast. They concession to people with
like us.
Say you and Bub's palate being in this land and looking at the next menu we're going to go over at Satuli Cantina. Satuli Canteen. The cantinas over in Hollywood Studios at Star Wars Land. Now, this is consistently, people always say this is the highest rated quick service on property. This is one of the favorite quick service. Did a little research. Touringplans.com, if you're familiar with this website, it's a very data-driven vacation planning site. Based on 500,000 responses to their vacation planning app from people who use it, 98% of people view Satuli Canteen favorably. So this is the most critically acclaimed quick service on property. I personally, this is the only quick service that I eat at every single trip without fail. And I would be upset if I missed it. So first off, biggest plus to this, Animal Kingdom, notoriously hot, notoriously hard to find shade, notoriously hard to get out of the rain. Well, this place solves most of those. It is indoor dining room, seats 330, outdoor dining room has 190. The outdoor seating is completely covered, has fans, indoor seating, air conditioned, and they are cranking it.
Yeah, that is cranking air conditioning. Cranking.
Yeah. And it's obviously a newer quick service, so the seating is nice. A lot of benches, the chairs are adequately sized, the tables are big and nicely spaced out. It has metal silverware. People bust your trays. So all the stuff you kind of come to expect at the newer quick services that aren't called Woody's Lunchbox here. And it is, I think this is the only big quick service in Animal Kingdom that has significant indoor air-conditioned seating, because the market in Africa is all outdoor.
Flame Tree Barbecue is all outside.
Yep. And so is Yak and Yeti quick service is all outside under an awning. Yeah, so this is the only game in town if you want to eat in air conditioning. The quote-unquote problem with this one comes when we get to the menu for people who have, let's say, less adventurous palates. So the menu is pretty simple, actually. They have two things. Cheeseburger bao buns, cheeseburger steamed pods, as they call them. And what they are is a bao bun, which is a Chinese-style bun. And traditionally, it's filled with roast barbecue pork. In this case, it's filled with ground beef, American cheese, ketchup, mustard, and relish. And I have obviously never had one of these as a vegetarian. Rachel enjoys them. I've been on trips with other people who had them. Allegedly, it tastes exactly like a Big Mac. And I think this is another awesome thing they've done where the presentation, a lot of Americans are not used to what a steamed bun looks like. So it's presented as this pod off some kind of a tree or something. But the wrapper to a bao bun is functionally Wonder Bread, that instead of being baked in a loaf is shaped into a ball around a filling and cooked in a steamer. But this could not be less offensive. In fact, this is the kids menu item also. So you're taking this very traditional cheeseburger flavor and presenting it in a very exotic way. And if neither of you not adventurous people haven't had this, I do recommend having this if you're a cheeseburger fan. I have heard multiple times that this is one of the better quick service cheeseburgers on property. This comes served with house-made kettle chips and rainbow slaw. And we'll hear more about that rainbow slaw in a second, because the rest of the menu is protein bowls that you customize yourself. So the bowls all come topped with that rainbow slaw, and which is just a standard Asian style slaw, red cabbage, carrots, I think some like sliced up broccoli, and maybe some red onion in there with a vinegar-based dressing, and plain boba balls, which don't taste like anything, but you have like weird translucent orbs on top of your meal, which certainly adds to the otherworldly appearance of it. And from there, you pick your protein, which is chicken, which is wood grilled in the restaurant. The restaurant always smells great because of this. A thinly sliced beef, chili garlic shrimp, or crispy tofu. And this is, for me, the big draw of this place. I know I've said it before on the show a couple of times. No one is doing plant-based stuff with the variety and availability on vacation as Disney World is, which is one of the big reasons that I choose to spend my vacation dollars there as someone who's been a vegetarian their entire adult life. But their vegetarian food is heavily, heavily, heavily focused on meat analogs, fake meat. They were early adopters of Beyond, Impossible, the Garden Chicken. They've had their veggie burgers for years have not been like a black bean burger. It's trying to simulate meat. And that's not a lot of what I eat at home. I eat a lot of tofu and beans and these sorts of more natural vegetarian proteins. So this is literally the only quick service on property that has a tofu dish. Otherwise, it's only the table services that have tofu. So I like this to get a less processed meal. And that's why they went with tofu, because all the stuff in these bowls are not like processed. They're very natural and healthy. And this is also probably the healthiest quick service on property. So anyway, you pick your protein, then you pick your base, which is noodles. This is like a real standard lo mein, like you would get at like any Chinese restaurant. A salad, which is romaine and some mixed greens, lightly dressed in like a vinaigrette. Brown and white rice with some black beans, or a potato hash, which is red skinned potatoes and sweet potatoes, kind of cubed up, little like 1/4-inch cubes, with some red bell pepper and onions. And then you choose your sauce. The sauces are a charred onion chimichurri sauce, a black bean vinaigrette, or a creamy herb dressing. Creamy herb dressing is basically like a garlic ranch. And then it's served to you as the base, your protein of choice, with the sauce over top, and then that slaw and the boba in like this really cool like pottery bowl that Disney had purpose built for this restaurant. The portions are huge. The prices are pretty reasonable when it comes for park quick service, and it's like fresh, not processed food. It's not a cheeseburger. It's not chicken tenders. It's not, buffalo tots.
Hating on us, but
I feel attacked.
I'm not hating on you guys.
It's not chicken tenders.
Half a million survey responses, 98% view this restaurant favorably.
I will tell you this. As a gentleman that does not eat here, that gets the pretzel outside, I will tell you that the scents alone are worth it, because food smells don't bother me. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I love the smell of it. I will tell you that the aromas coming out of the kitchen in this place are off the hook. It smells delicious in there.
It's because they have that giant charcoal grill. They're just grilling chicken all day on all this marinated chicken.
Yeah, it's.
I will say that overall, though, can we just agree that Animal Kingdom does a great job on quick service?
Yes.
Just not being like that. You know what I mean? Like, just overall, not even just with Pandora, but Flame Tree Barbecue is my go-to. Like, that's where we go every time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, other than Restaurantosaurus, which is like we need a traditional Disney quick service that serves the same burger and the same fries we serve everywhere else.
Right.
All of them hit it out of the park. Animal Kingdom
Dino Land in general, you're right, Tim. Even Pizzafari over that way is pretty garbage pizza.
Oh, I forgot about Pizzafari. Yeah, so there are two really.
Yeah, there
bad,
are two.
But nobody goes to them. So that's the other thing. No. Unlike the other parks, when at lunchtime, if you need to grab a bite, you can hit up Pizzafari or Restaurantosaurus because there's never going to be a line there. Yeah, Animal Kingdom is the only park where I consistently never worry about having an ADR for lunch or dinner because the quick services, I just usually want to eat at more than one of them in a day.
You could Tiffin's and Yak and Yeti's dining room. No, you can do some damage at this place.
Yeah. And if you take the bus ride over to Animal Kingdom Lodge, that's a whole other show.
Oh,
that's the best dining on property.
Yeah. Yep. Drew, I don't think Drew believes us on that either. I don't think he gets it. I think he fights us on it every time.
I know. I don't think. Well, that's another show. We're not going to get into Drew's preferences and also Animal Kingdom Lodge dining. We will definitely be doing an Animal Kingdom Lodge show, and there's a lot to talk about there. Just to finish out the Satuli Cantina menu, they have their drinks are actually exactly the same as Pongu Pongu. Plus, they have a selection of some other microbrew beers and 2 house wines. They got a little creative in the naming. It's the Banshee Pinot Noir and the Banshee Chardonnay. I feel like they were so close they couldn't have done a different name for the white wine.
They went out on a limb with those.
Banshee.
They went out on a limb with those.
I see what you did there. And then for dessert, we have the blueberry cream cheese mousse dome with passion fruit curd. This is just a cheesecake shaped like a dome, coated with like shiny blue fondant, and has like a passion fruit jam on it. It's very good. It looks very otherworldly. It also looks very fancy for a quick service dessert. And then the other one is a chocolate cake dome, and that has a crunchy cookie layer in the middle and banana cream on the top. This is one that I will never touch because I find banana flavored things other than the Ohana bread pudding abhorrent. So I don't know if this is good or bad.
That is deep right there. That is Tim's water ride, Jordan. Yeah. Banana flavoring is Tim's water.
Oh, yeah, no. Bananas in general, not a banana guy.
It's unbelievable. I don't disagree with you. I will tell you, from a guy that doesn't eat at this place, will tell you, I highly recommend it myself. And I will tell you, having this conversation, I need to go back to Pandora. I love this area of the park. I really, really do.
Yeah, so, I mean, if anybody doesn't have anything else on the food, I think the food is great here. I think it is interesting. This is another place where we see the DNA that has spread to Toy Story Land and Galaxy's Edge, where there is not a table service, where we just have small like
bistro-y places type thing. Yeah.
Well, I just meant like a small stand and then a large quick service.
Yep.
Which
there's more money in quick service, Tim.
I think so, because you could just turn over super rapidly.
Yeah. Turn them and burn them.
I think overall, I think this is just the direction we're going to see, where it's an elevated quick service. It serves food that's a little bit better in a little bit bigger portions and a little bit more expensive than, Friar's Nook, and also has a full alcohol menu, and they bust your table, but you don't need an ADR, and you could seat 330 people inside and 190 people outside, which is a heck of a lot more people than you'll get at, 3 or 4 seatings at dinner and 3 seatings at lunch at a table service, even if your average check is, half the size.
Deep cut here. Do you guys know Drew's favorite Adele song?
No.
No, I have no idea.
It is Turning Tables.
I don't know any Adele songs that are not like the radio ones.
I will tell you, deep cut, and I hope he's listening tonight or tomorrow morning, and he messages me about it. But we once went to a fest up here, and he was very upset that they weren't turning tables fast enough for Drew's liking. So he was very upset. Oh, don't you turn tables in this place, huh? And at that point, I every time I think of Drew or we talk about a restaurant turning tables or turning people around, I immediately tell everybody that Drew's favorite Adele song is in fact awesome. Turning Tables.
I love that.
It's fantastic. If we're gonna knock Rachel for her
throwing a margarita at a baby,
no. 1-year-old, then we're gonna.
The term we're looking for, Bob, is throwing a margarita at a baby. And I hope you're listening, Rachel, because I'll hear about that tomorrow.
She pretty much Naomi Campbelled that baby.
Yes, basically. Now you're going to be on the bad list. So one place where Pandora varies from Galaxy's Edge quite a bit is in merchandising. Same overarching philosophy of extremely immersive merchandise options, except instead of having mostly stores take up all the land, Pandora only has one gift shop. It's a big gift shop, but it's tucked all the way in the back. You're actually never forced to go through it, despite it being at the exit of Flight of Passage. You have to actually walk across like a little threshold, though, to go into it. You could just exit the ride, so they are not forcing you through it. But I would recommend going through it. This is another place where you super could see that DNA that continued to the other immersive lands, where all the merchandise continues the immersion. You're going to see your standard stuff, T-shirts, ears, swords, dress-up accessories, keychains, pins, stickers, magnets, all that stuff, except just like with Galaxy's Edge, none of this stuff says Pandora World of Avatar or Disney's Animal Kingdom, or has a Mickey with, hanging out with a Navi or Jake Sully. It is all says, Alpha Centauri Expeditions, Pandora. I visited Pandora. You are getting souvenirs from the moon of Pandora, not from Pandora at Disney's Animal Kingdom. There is a little bit of that merch, but you have to go back to the gift shops on Discovery Island to find that. Nothing sold in this land breaks the immersion. Which is very much the blueprint of how it works at Galaxy's Edge. And 100% this was the trial balloon for how merchandising was going to be done at Galaxy's Edge. And just like Galaxy's Edge, we do have our signature high-end merch options. The most famous one, of course, is the Banshee that rides on your shoulder. It's held in place by some strong magnets, correct, Bob?
Yeah, well, if you get the perch, you can strap the perch to yourself, and that's got little magnet pieces on it, little guys there. And then Meg tells me no every time. One day I will come home with the Banshee.
Now, Tim, I know you're a big character warehouse person. Do you remember when they put the warehouse and they were going for $10 a piece?
I saw them for $17, but I heard they did go down to $9.95. I was gonna bring that up at the end. I have heard that they still do. that. I guess since we're going to talk about it. So the Banshee, it's magnets to your shoulders. It's probably like 15 inches long, and you run this black cable
what the hell
down
I would
to your.
do with it though?
Well,
This
then
is why
you wrote
Nick
it's also buying the perch that sits on the table, so you
Yeah.
can display it. But you run this cable down to your hand, and then there's like a little, almost like a pistol grip with 4 buttons on it. And you pull the trigger, and its head goes, side to side. One of them flaps its wings. One of them nods the head up and down. It's like it's a puppet, basically. It's all analog. There's no batteries in it or anything. There's all sorts of colors. You get them in the area of the shop. It's like a wall of like woven sticks. It's like a banshee rookery to adopt.
Yeah, the banshee rookery. Adopt a banshee.
And
There's
backstories too.
yeah. There's a cast member there who gives you the backstories, and these things are like right around $50 with no accessories. And then by the time you get the branch to put it on so you can put it someplace once it's in your house, you're looking at $7,500. As Jordana alluded to, if you can get out of property and get to the Vineland Premium Outlets or the Orlando Premium Outlets, go to the Character Warehouse. These things, they rotate the colors through on the Banshees, and the less popular colors end up at the Character Warehouse. As I said, I've seen them for like $17. I have heard they get down to $12, and they are very often end up there. Now, right now, from what I've heard with COVID protocols, getting into the Character Warehouse is a nightmare, and there is a virtual queue that is like 8 hours long. So right now is not the time to try to get to the Character Warehouse, because all the people in the virtual queue, if you allow me to rant a little bit, are all these people who run these like personal shopping services on Facebook for Orlando locals and travel agents and stuff. And you basically like pay them a flat fee or 10% of what the purchase price is they buy you. And they like go and they're like, all right, today they have legacy lightsabers, Darth Maul and red Banshees and the t-shirts from this festival that never happened. And then it's a racket right now. So hopefully we'll get back to normal because Character Warehouse rules. It's totally worth taking an Uber and going over there because you could get your souvenirs and some really neat souvenirs that were sold as limited edition merch for, pennies on the dollar. But that's neither here nor there. So if you don't want to adopt the Banshee, the other marquee thing, the droid to the Banshee's lightsaber, if I don't say so myself, is the Avatar Maker. I can't believe this is still around. I've literally never seen anybody doing one of these. Basically, this is definitely for the kids. You go in a tube. We've talked about this on Best Gift Shops. They scan your face, and then basically they use a combination of, I don't even think they use like 3D printing technology to do it. It's more a generic blank, and then they basically use like a lot of action figures use this technology now. Use face printing. Basically, they paint your avatarized face onto the avatar doll. The problem is it's like a Barbie doll sized doll or like a old school G.I. Joe. It's $75. And that's just the basic avatar with the loincloth and like a spear and a backpack. And then if you want to buy clothes for it, you're looking at like $150 when you're all said and done to have your avatar made. And the whole point, I get it. It's very thematic. Like that's the whole point of Avatar is like inhabiting a Navi's body. But they're also, the whole thing was they were giant. And this is a doll. So like, why is your avatar 14 inches tall instead of 20 feet tall? I don't know. I can't believe this has held up that long. I imagine it must be either they have a surplus of these dolls and they still are trying to get rid of them all years later, or this doesn't cost anything for them to keep this around in the gift shop on the off chance somebody actually wants to buy one of these things.
I think it's that one. I think it's just they just have these, and if someone buys one, they screwed someone else. It's great. They've scammed another one, So
other than that, as I said, they have ears there. They are not Mickey ears. They are not Goofy ears. They're not Donald ears. They are Navi ears. These are super popular. I see these all over the place now. They also sell Navi tails. which is kind of creepy. These tails are for kids because if you've seen the movie, the tails are used for love and affection among the Navi, we should say. So that's kind of weird. That's the direction they went in, selling the tails. And then a variety of, postcards, posters, mugs, and pins, as I said, but all in the vein of these are your souvenirs from your trip to the moon of Pandora, is what I'm trying to get out. And this is the gift shop is easily the best example of the architecture where the gift shop was a military building that has been overtaken by nature. The moss on the wall that you see when you exit Flight of Passage before you enter the gift shop is an awesome example of the weathering. The back wall that is also the back wall of the land itself in that courtyard area right outside Flight of Passage is awesome. So this is definitely the best example of that like reclaimed architecture that they went for in that back area where like Satu'li Cantina is very much like a Navi building, but this and Pongu Pongu are like the military buildings, the Navi and the good humans reclaimed. Oh, and one other thing they sell here that's like kind of a flagship thing and that we alluded to earlier is Navi, like many other famous sci-fi languages throughout history, is a fully realized language that James Cameron, either himself or with the help of others, made up. And in this gift shop, they sell a Navi Translator. And from there, you can buy packs of cards that you then insert into the translator to learn different Navi phrases. And theoretically, if you buy enough cards, you can teach yourself to speak Navi with this translator. And I have definitely heard from people who have bought this thing before, kind of because it's just such a novel thing to own, that while you are in Pandora, all the employees have to learn at least basic Navi, and you can like take your Navi translator, learn some basic Navi phrases, or use the translator to speak those phrases to the cast members, and they will respond back to you in Navi. So that's kind of like a neat thing. I think that even though like the Banshee is the big Pandora souvenir, and supposedly so is the Avatar maker, I think the Navi translator is definitely the coolest thing that they sell at this I think
the more underrated one than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the Banshees are very cool, but I think that this is way cooler.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like Bub actually has one, which is...
I do. I no surprise.
No
surprise there. It's actually it belongs to my children, not me.
Sure.
Just so we're clear.
Quotations in there.
So that kind of wraps up what I have on Pandora. I guess. What are your final thoughts on the land as we've taken our journey through the land of Pandora, Jordana?
I mean, as someone, and this is kind of the same thing with Galaxy's Edge, as someone who's not super, super into it, I think it's totally awesome. And I think that it's something that you don't have to watch the movie and know every detail to enjoy it and enjoy the rides and enjoy the food. And I just think that how they overtook everything is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think you just hit it on the head. These lands, and I'm very interested to see what happens with Avengers Campus in 2 months. Disney does this so well where, yes, there is a huge group of people who love Star Wars. There is a huge group of people who love Marvel. There was a huge group of people who loved Avatar. I mean, it still is the highest grossing film of all time.
Right.
But there's a bigger group of people of any of these given things who have no idea or don't care about it. So Disney needs to make these in such a way that they are still immersive and interesting and cool and worthwhile for people who are not already fans of the subject matter. And I think with Avatar, most of all, which is their first attempt at that, they hit a home run on that.
Yeah,
Bob?
definitely.
Yeah, I just want people to have fun when they go to this part of the park. Because that's what you have to do. It's such a fun corner of the park, and it's 12 acres, but it's so fun to go to this portion of the park. It really, really is. I don't have many complaints about this part of Animal Kingdom at all. And honestly, to borrow a whatever these kids are saying these days, I'm an Animal Kingdom stan, man. So I'm here for it. I'm here for Avatar. The movie's fine. It is what it is. I enjoy the movie, and I'm okay with saying that. And I think this does a great job of allowing you to, having seen the movie, it allows you to kind of immerse yourself further into the world of Pandora. And if you've never seen the movie, you can go to this land not having seen the movie and still enjoy yourself. And I think that is the greatest trick of all that they pulled off.
Yeah. And I'll just say, to relate it back to our theme, I think despite this being entirely artificial environment, it does a great job to tell a conservation story and a story about the importance of the natural order and existing with our planet and not against it by being able to exist completely as allegory. When you're waiting to check out at Satuli Canteen, there's all these black and white photos on the wall. And if you look at them, they're actually photos of the construction of the land with Joe Rohde and Josh D'Amaro and Bob Chapek and Bob Iger and all these people. But what they've done is they've gone ahead and photoshopped in Navi and the doctor from the ride, Dr. Ogden or Dr. Augustine. This is the biggest misstep in this land. The original created character for Flight of Passage is either Dr. Ogden or Dr. Augustine, and the other one of those two extremely similar names is a character in the film Avatar who is not related to or the same thing. That was a misstep there. But anyway, they have all these photos in the queue of the creation of this land with Navi added, and all of a sudden, even the construction of this land in Orlando, Florida in the 2000s on Earth is now an immersive part of the story, because apparently Joe Rohde and Josh D'Amaro were, on the moon of Pandora, breaking ground and cutting ribbons with big scissors with, 15-foot tall blue-tailed aliens and giant flying dragons. But yeah, I think
Banshees, Tim. Banshees.
Yeah, they're like a big dragon. But anyway, I think
Banshee got his ass kicked in that monster battle.
Yeah, I mean, he was never going to win against multiple kaijus or monsters from mythology.
Yes. Well, I think that's it then, here, boys and girls. I think that's going to wrap up episode 110 of the Disney Guys Uncensored. We thank you for listening. We thank you for taking this Earth Week journey with us. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming next week. And I think the last thing I want to leave you with is, please remember to spay or neuter your Banshee.
After careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park.